Hello everyone, my name is David Lopez. I am a Los Angeles-based photographer, and this is my story, or I guess look back at my 10-year career as a photographer. There's many moments I can think back on the last 10 years that made a huge impact in me in terms of becoming a photographer. But there's this one experience that I had. Let me paint the picture for you. It's December 2014, the week of Christmas. And my family and I decided to take a trip up to Big Bear Lake. We wanted to celebrate a white Christmas. You know, that's something you don't really experience here in LA because it's pretty warm out here. And I've been to the snow before when I was a kid, so going into this trip, I was very excited because I remember vividly enjoying hanging out with my family, building snowmen and sledding and all that stuff that we did as kids. But now I get to do it as an adult. So we get there, it was at night, and so you couldn't really see the scenery. It was pitch black because we're in the middle of the woods, and the only light that was lighting anything was from the cars and from the cabin that we stayed at, which was lakeside. So we go to bed and everything. We wake up the next day to have coffee, and we were out on the deck, and I remember just taking out my phone and just taking pictures. And I remember walking down from the deck to the lakeside to take some more photos because I've never seen a frozen lake before. This was all new to me. And I remember taking this picture. I sat there and I looked at it for a few minutes, and I feel like something within me awoke. I guess the best way I could describe what was going through my mind at the time was really like, I was starting to see portals into, as cheesy as it sounds, into like a different realm. You know, I would see photos or frames or whatever you want to call them in the scenery, and I would just start taking the pictures. Was the composition good? Probably not, because I didn't know anything about composition or lighting or color theory or any of that. I was just taking pictures because I thought it would look cool. I had so much fun doing it. I had this sense of bliss and excitement that I hadn't felt in a long time. Because prior to that, I was going to school for illustration, and that kind of just ended up becoming a hobby. And I always felt like I had this creative itch I needed to scratch, and I felt that this first photo walk I did in Big Bear with my family really scratched and satisfied that itch. I could trace it all back to that trip that just something in me clicked, and that was the moment I feel like I became a photographer, or at least started onto the path of becoming a photographer. So let's move forward in time to 2016, 2 years later. And that year was very memorable for me as a photographer, but in my personal life, it was also very difficult. In the career aspect, I booked my first gig. It was with Vice Munchies, and it was through a friend of mine that I met at my old job playing video games. And so I remember him texting me like, hey, I have this potential gig. Do you want it? It's like 5 minutes from your house. I was like, yeah, let's do it. And I've never photographed a professional job ever, like prior to this. And I was scared shitless because I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? I didn't even have a flash. I shot everything available light. And thankfully the venue was pretty well lit, but I don't remember exactly what it was. I do remember it being inspired by a celebrity that I guess overdosed or something. It was like this Hollywood celebrity that was well known for doing drugs back in the day. And so the whole menu and the theme was like, I guess like drug inspired. I, for the life of me, can't remember. But I remember being very content on the drive home because I was like, wow, I actually made money doing this. And, you know, I remember calling my mom and told her like, hey, I hope this is the start of something big. And she said, yeah, it is, you know, just keep doing it. And I did. And my friend Javier and I continued to work on a lot of Vice Munchies stories. But the one that I feel like really kind of like pushed my career, I guess, to the next level was the story that we photographed for Trejo's Tacos back when it opened. And the reason I say that is because there was this one dish that they served. It was a tray of tacos that were so spicy it would come with a shot glass. And on the shot glass it said Got Milk. I didn't know at the time, but the reps from Got Milk were there and they saw my work and they really liked it. So they contacted me and they said, hey, we want to work with you. Can you photograph some stuff for us? We have a few projects in mind. And I was like, sure, let's do it. And I was like, cool, you know, I'm starting to branch out. And that first gig I did with Got Milk was where I met my friend Eddie Zamora, who's my best friend and somebody I consider like my brother. And from there on, like I did more gigs with them, and then I eventually branched out. Eddie and I did some stuff with Best Western. Eddie introduced me to my friend Randy, who manages the bands I work with, and that took my career into a different direction. And it's all kind of like a snowball effect, but I trace everything back to that first gig with my friend Javier. And I'm so thankful for him because I feel like that's really let me branch out and network. And I feel that a big part of my success as a photographer 10 years later has always been networking, talking to people, getting to know them. And you know, if it comes up on conversation, I mentioned that I do photography and video, and then if they may not necessarily need me, but somebody they know might want to hire me for a project. So I definitely feel that networking as a result of that first gig and just talking to people has played a huge role in my career. The reason I really pushed myself so hard is because my dad died. He passed away on March 1st, 2016 at 12 p.m. He played a huge role in my life, exposing me to photography because all the photos that we still have from when we were kids that were shot on film were shot by my dad. Losing my dad was probably the most difficult experience I've ever had in my life. I remember getting a call that morning from my mom saying that the situation was critical, we had to go to the hospital. And I was the first one to arrive, and I remember as I got up to the doors to go into the ICU, it took forever for them to open, but my heart, I already knew my dad was gone. It still hurts 8 years later. It leaves this void in your heart that just never fully heals, and the world just feels like it's off balance because you lost a parent. And I definitely feel like losing my dad, while at the time I felt like I didn't have a sense of direction because I was at the cusp of turning 30, and I feel like in my 30s, that's where you kind of need some words of wisdom from your parents. I felt so lost, and going back to that first gig that I booked, I felt like I had a sense of direction again. He never lived to see me become this successful. He didn't see me go photograph Santana or travel to Napa Valley to do video work. And that is something that still hurts so bad because no matter how hard you try, you're never gonna be able to share that with your dad because he's gone. So I tried really hard to share everything with my mom because I still have her. She's still young and healthy. And I'm grateful that I'm able to take her on some of my music photography gigs so she could dance salsa and have fun. But I'm so thankful and grateful that I get to share these experiences with her. And that is why I work so hard to do what I do. So as a palate cleanser, let's talk about my favorite experiences as a photographer. So there's really two of them. The first one was when my friend Eddie and I did a video for Best Western up in Napa Valley. I've never gone to Napa, let alone travel and get paid to travel and shoot fucking content for a brand. So that was really cool. And I just had such a fantastic time, and I'm very happy I get to do that as often as I do with Eddie when we go out and travel and work with brands and whatnot. But the other one was when I just had started working with Randy doing music photography. I went out to Las Vegas to photograph Andy Vargas playing with Carlos Santana. And that was 3 months into my tenure with this group. And you know, here I am a year later talking about this, and I still can't believe I did it. Overall, the experiences I have, the people I meet that I get to talk to and make friends with, I look at the cameras as I'm talking to you guys right now, and it's like, wow, because I use these pieces of equipment to craft photos and create stories, I get to have these cool experiences, and that is something I'm very grateful for. Speaking of experiences, music photography needed its own section in this film because there's just so much stuff that has happened to me as a result of working with these musicians and Randy over the past year. I'm super grateful for all of them. Gabriel, Randy, Ron, and Andy are the epitome of hard work gets you into places because they all are super talented in their own right, and they all have been working so hard with their music, with their craft, and it's just so inspiring. photographing people dancing and enjoying the music and seeing the performances that the musicians deliver, being larger than life. It's just so much fun, and I enjoy being behind the camera. And every time I get to go to one of these gigs, I just feel so excited and content that I get to do this for a living. This one was kind of a dream I had, where my dad was guiding me down a hallway and led me to Randy and Gabriel. So I always say that these two are my angels, because in a way they have become almost like spiritual father figures to me. And I love working with them, and they're just incredible people. If there's something I can impart with you today, looking back on my experiences, the lesson or the piece of advice I could share with you is take a chance on yourself. Don't be afraid to take a chance on yourself. I almost kicked the music photography gig over to somebody else, and I'm glad I didn't, because I took a chance on myself. Because had I done it, I wouldn't have been able to have the experiences I've had. And just working with a lot of like wonderfully talented people that are now friends of mine. So take a chance on yourself. Don't be afraid to fail, because you're gonna learn from your mistakes. Failure is the greatest teacher. And just have fun with it. That's really the advice I can share with you. So with that said, thank you guys so much for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.